Hello, Echo Echo. Yes, Imre, we see you.
Hey.
All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Crypto Talks. It's TA Monday. I got my fake coffee with a burnt mug from the outdoors, and
I have my accurate named mug.
right, Mr. Handsome. That's true.
We're ready to go.
You're the most handsomest guy ever.
I mean,
everywhere.
It's just a mug, dude.
I mean, okay.
It's just a mug.
So today, sorry, I got a dry throat today. It's cold. Okay, so today we're gonna have a look at Bitcoin again. As usual, we do our usual Monday quick check, and we're gonna have a look at Rob. You were gonna look at some dominant stuff, right?
Yeah, bit of Bitcoin, bit of ETH dominance, and Polygon, how that's playing out.
Yeah. I need to ask though before we get into this. Jay says nice mug. Which mug? Are you talking about the burnt, fireplace mug, or are you talking about the Mr. Handsome mug? It's very important that we know which one is the nice one. I'll let you respond to that while we talk. All right. So I'm just gonna hop over to my price chart here. Now, let me know, by the way, chat, if you prefer this view or if you prefer this view right here. And this kind of covers the RSI and all that, not much of the important bits, but
it annoys me when it covers the date sometimes. That view, that's kind of the worst bit about that bit.
I like this view because this is pretty. It's smaller for the viewer, but I think it's good. So if you guys prefer this one, let us know. If it's too small on your screen, we can expand it down. All right, cool. So 2 weeks ago we did some TA on Bitcoin, and we had a trend line which looked something like this. I'm not going to do the whole one all the way back because I am lazy, but we were looking at this trend line and we said when it cracks through, we're going to see hopefully a pump, and luckily for us we were right for once. No, but it actually happened the way we were thinking it would. If it wouldn't have happened, it would just not have happened, and we would have said, "Oh, oops." But yeah, so we had this pump, and then the next Monday there, I think we were stuck somewhere around right here, this date, and we did some TA. We said we think this might actually keep going past this because it's testing it right now on the day, and we drew a box here. I'm not going to do the box completely, but we said if Bitcoin closes or opens within this box, if it closes within this box or goes through it completely, that will be a bullish thing because we have this long-term trend line right here. And right now we're actually still in that, so you can see how it's slowed down. We've had this huge pump. We had some consolidation to the side. Kind of getting all the shorter term indicators down and back into like pump mode or whatever you want to call it, and we had this little extra pump here, and right now we're kind of just waiting for something to happen. I think our prediction, Rob, was that if we crack through this trend line and we start closing above this, that will be a bullish sign. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna keep going straight up, but it certainly means that it's going to be testing it as support.
Certainly, the similarities to 2019 are very apparent right now.
Right, precisely, yes. And just to head back to that, I'm gonna go to the weekly and just to clarify what we mean by that. Oh wow, I'm on the wrong chart, but actually that doesn't matter. But we're talking about this trend line right here. Where we kind of went above, and it's kind of bouncing. You see how it's bouncing there. It's moving slowly upwards, and we're kind of seeing the same thing here. It's obviously not the exact same thing. It's never the same thing. You never know what can happen.
It's kind of the same thing.
It really is. But you have to. In terms of technical analysis, yes, the build-up is basically the same. The difference right now is that we're kind of looking towards a recessionary period, which in my own opinion, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Rob, but for me, I felt like it started around here.
Recessionary period is an understatement. So,
yeah,
in my opinion,
I knew most people, if you really had read into and if you had a good macro perspective, which I got during this period, because personally I was not that into it at that point, and this is somewhere around the time when Rob and I started hanging out a lot, and so I learned a lot from Rob, thankfully. So the macro perspective right here was kind of like, oh, a recession has started 3 months ago or something like that, but like not recession as a.
It was essentially the shift. It was the shift from loose monetary conditions to tight monetary conditions. You know, the
precisely
starting the interest rate hikes.
And usually with the recessions, if you go back in time and you look at the recessions, usually they're backdated. So whenever they come out and say, oh, we're in a recession now, maybe they will say it when we're here, but then they're going to backdate and say, oh, it started here. They usually do that with the recessions, actually. If you look at the data and you look at the news around that time, they usually backdate it a fair bit, because I think they want to kind of just avoid the word recession, because it scares people, and it should, right?
There was I'm sure the statement is correct that the US Fed have never ever predicted a recession. They have never turned around and said, we are going to have a recession. They always just say, it turns out we're in a recession.
Yes, yes. And so, yes, exactly. And here's Balino says, markets always trade the future, not the present. Very true.
I'd say true.
Usually... Go ahead, Rob. You got the words for this stuff.
True within a... like, yes, within the larger perspective, within the larger time frames, but the current scenario that you don't know what you don't know, and ultimately right now we know there's an awful lot of bad things coming, and we know that the global economy is not in a good shape, but we don't know when it's going to go, or if it's going to go, or how it's going to go. So you can only trade the future that's actually predictable. And so right now, even though we can predict what's going to happen, as in bad things are coming, if those bad things are 6 months time away, who says we can't just go up in a straight line for 6 months? It's certainly possible.
Let me give you an example. Like an example is when DCG, I think 2 days ago, came out and said, not DCG, sorry, Genesis, sorry, yes, and they came out and said, well, we're gonna file for Chapter 11, I think it was, and nothing happened. Nothing. It was already priced in. So markets trade the future, yes, but a lot of the time, if it's something that like nobody knew about that FTX was gonna actually happen, right? And so we saw this huge dump right here, right? 3AC and everything, nobody knew that was gonna happen, it just happened, right? But if the markets know, like you can already predict right now, for example, that the CPI numbers that will come out in on what is it? Let me just super quickly just check.
14th or so.
14th of February. They're gonna come out, and we know that it's gonna be probably 6%, maybe less, right?
Yeah.
My prediction is dead on 6%. That's just me. But we can already predict that, because the trend reversal happened in the summer, and we have that confirmed now for months. Every month that's come out, we can predict that, okay, it's going to go down. So next CPI that comes out, I would say that's probably priced in, if it's neutral. I mean, meaning that it comes in as they have expected. If it comes in higher or lower, then you're going to have a small reaction, but it's going to be so small. But so yeah, I would say, yeah, we do trade the future, but you got to remember that a lot of these things are priced in by the markets already.
And I'd say a good example of that idea of trading the future or pricing in the future is 2019, where we had this huge pump from 3,000 to 14,000, which was, it was an irrational reaction to a year of bear market. There was a few things. I imagine most people that watch this won't even remember backed BAKKT, which was one of the first sort of exchange traded products that were going to launch, and it was absolutely huge because Intercontinental Exchange were launching it, and it was huge news. I think it's closed down because it was just a complete failure. And on top of that, there was a few fundamental things like the Plus token scam, which in the West people didn't even hear about, but it was huge. They got like $1 billion worth of Bitcoin around the time of this huge pump happening. And but the news was that actually the global macro wasn't really recovering, didn't look great in its own case in 2019, and that's why we had a crash in 2020. Was not just COVID was the catalyst, but it wasn't the cause. The cause was the state of the economy in 2019, and so this huge pump ended up completely getting mostly faded all the way back down to 6k, because 6.5k, because the market wasn't trading the future. It was getting irrational and having its own secular pump. The future ended up coming true when it had a 55-60% correction again. And we're kind of seeing a similar sort of story play out now. Where there's an awful lot of bad in the background, but that doesn't mean that we can't have an irrational pump purely through just reaction to a year of bear market. If everybody just calms down and stops and tries to buy, they suddenly realize that everyone's accumulated and there's simply no more Bitcoin at this price, regardless of macro conditions.
Right. So, Rob, what I want to do is we're going to do some TA and see what we can do and see how right we are for next week's TA, like we usually do.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw an uptrending trend line. For the first time in a long time, I'm going to draw one. And it's going to be anchored here, and it's going to go up like that. Nice, huh?
It is nice.
It's nice to see something actually pointing upwards for the first time since, well, basically here. We have actually built some support around here. Am I even on the right scales here? Yes, I am. Okay.
So Bellino's just asking, so do you think we will retest the lows?
Yes, I will get to that.
Yeah.
In a second. So with this trend line, it's just one top that's been made. This can be cracked whenever. It's not really a strong one right now, but it is. It's
not necessarily confirmed as a swing high yet,
right?
So
precisely. And I mean, you could put it down here too if you really wanted to, but that feels a bit,
Yeah.
This is more of a longer term thing, right? Because that can be anchored on a weekly, I believe, if you just do that. It looks a bit more fun, right? But I'm going to stick to the daily here. So we have that line. There's a lot of lines on my chart. I'm sorry, guys. We do have this support. I'm going to actually make this a green. And this one is going to go green as well for support. And there we go. So we actually have a lot of support lines lined up here. Excuse the pun, not intended. But now we're above this long-term trend line that is all the way from the all-time high, right? And yeah, it could move downwards on top of this, right? That could be a thing for sure. We do have a support line right here, which is the old where we anchored this top, which is, let's see, 21,500, something like that. Then the next one below that's going to be the 20K. That's just a psychological one for me. It doesn't really play into anything other than that in my book. But then you also have the fib level here, which we've used a lot to bounce and use as support before. So we have 3 green lines and this downtrending line, which will hopefully support it. It's already actually bounced on it, I think 3 times since it came over it. For 3 days, which is good. We do also have this purple line right here is the 200 daily simple moving average, which is kind of lined up with just below 20K right now. So that's another support line because it needs to correct in. It does have to correct in. If you're looking at this, you see the Bollinger Bands here. The orange line right here is the middle of the Bollinger Band. That is usually where stuff tends to kind of hit. It's a very good example of that. Is like if you look back all the way here, you see how it came to the bottom of the Bollinger Bands, came up, bounced on the middle line, came up, and crashed through the middle line again. But then it used the middle line to kind of, and this is the weekly, by the way. So it's fairly strong. So we have that. We can also look at the Bollinger Band for the daily real quick. Chart. There you go. So we have a long ways to go. However, the Bollinger Band is actually above the 200-day simple moving average right now, because it's right about to cross here. Tomorrow it's going to be basically up here at the 20k level. So we're raising the bar for the support levels, not the horizontal lines, but we're raising the Bollinger Bands and all these things. The Gaussian level is going to come up to. I'm not going to open that now, but everything is coming up to kind of meet around here in this area, which is, for me, nice. How far will the pump go? Maybe it will go to this fib level and then come down again and retest everything, or it will just go now, or very slowly go sideways. We can't predict these things. Like, you can look at the TA and you can say, oh, it's going to do this and that. I mean, the RSI on the daily down here is completely overbought. And there are still a lot of shoes to drop in terms of the macro perspective of everything. Like, we have all kinds of things that might just make everything drop. And I don't actually know, Rob, but the SPX actually also cracked through that line that we were talking about. If this day closes above that, I'm going to be a bit more bullish in terms of the TA.
It'd have to take
on
pretty. What, we got just over 2 hours, is it, till the close? Or is it 1 hour?
It is sometime. I can't remember. But the Nasdaq still needs to come up. Why don't I have the whatever? It doesn't matter. But yes, so we're looking at a bullish momentum that could carry on. It could. Yeah. I mean, looking at I can't look at the 12-hour on TradingView, but looking at the 4-hour tends to come into the Bollinger, for example, play around a bit, create some volume here, and then it's moved. So we're kind of stuck in here right now.
It's done a good job as well of holding that level as it rose up, and then it's come back to the midline. Yeah,
I do want to say this though, with the RSI as well on the 4-hourly. This is very short term. So let me just open up this comment from Balino. Finally seeing something good pointing out. That's what she said. I mean,
it's nice. it's nice to see.
Sorry, kids.
Someone's got to say it.
Yeah. So for me, looking at this, the 4-hourly looks like it wants to kind of do this thing again. It could do the same. It could do something else. But the 4-hourly RSI is actually what I'm wanting to show here. I'm not going to do that bad. So here we go. If we do this, this right here is a very hard uptrending line on the price action. Yes. At the same time, you have this very harsh downtrending RSI level. And Rob, what does that mean?
That looks like a bearish divergence. So yeah, it's the thing to be aware. Is that things like this can stay overbought for a significant amount of time. It's very hard to really call any sort of top or any sort of end to a pump that can theoretically just keep squeezing. We don't know how many people in the background are currently FOMOing in, whilst at the same time there are shorts who are trapped underwater who are essentially deciding whether to double down or get liquidated or get stopped out. And as much as we would always say don't FOMO, but at the same time the price is going to react as a function of supply and demand. And right now the supply has been tapped out for has been continually tapped into for over a year. If all it takes is a small increase in demand, and all of a sudden that ratio just skews, and the price can go upwards just as quickly as it went downwards, and it's very hard to work out when that stops.
I mean, here's a good example of that. Harsh down, polish up. It looks the same. It's this is a few
just a
more
meme
days, but
version.
yeah.
I mean,
but
the
honestly, for TA for this week, honestly, for me, it's like it either it will do something like this, and then maybe come back up later on. Who knows? Or it will do this, right? I can't tell you, but those are the two scenarios, and you as a viewer, you will have to look at this yourself and figure out what you believe in here, because I do want to check one more thing though. Oh yeah. Percentile rank completely in the top. What the percentile rank usually does is it shows the top like this in the red, and we're looking at it's kind of a lagging thing. It shows the top slightly after the top has happened. So we had a top here, start showing it in orange, and then it comes down, and then it shows a lower high here with a higher high, and then a lower high here with a higher high. So when you sometimes, it's not always, but the way that I'm using this personally is to see when you have something like this where top is forming and it starts slowing down, this seems to go downwards in the histogram here. And right now we're seeing it's been at 100 for what is that, 6 days in a row. It's been at 100, which is, it can't go higher. So I'm a little bit wary about this, because this one is actually very good. I like this this indicator, and it's called the CM_Laguerre PPO percentile rank. If you guys want to test that one out, I like it. But you do have to backtest it. We're going to make a video on this sometime in the future. It's a fairly advanced one, so we'll wait with that for later videos. But this one is nice.
Yep.
There we go. I'm gonna let you do your thing, Rob, because you want to look at dominance and stuff too.
Okay.
So
sweet. Pass over. So first up is just a look at Ethereum. Now, I say these charts are quite a bit simpler than yours in terms of what they have on them, but much of the overall analysis is still completely valid. The market moves together, so what we've seen is Ethereum move up just as much, or well, in a similar sort of way than Bitcoin has. However, there is one big difference about this chart, and that's that it's kind of peaked out, but as it stands, Ethereum has put in a more of a double top than a higher high, which is to say that it probably will break higher. If Bitcoin breaks higher, then of course Ethereum will break higher with it. If Bitcoin pulls back, you would want to see how Ethereum reacts, relative to Bitcoin, because potentially it's in a situation now where Ethereum has actually got a bearish divergence. Oh, what you do? Oh, I have a coffee. Thanks. That's my mother.
Yay, mom.
So what you have is a relatively weaker move for Ethereum than you have versus Bitcoin, on Bitcoin, and that is showing itself in, we're not seeing, these are weekly candles here, so we've had 3 red weeks on the ETH BTC chart. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see there is a downtrend forming for Ethereum versus Bitcoin, and so this is a clear sign of the market at this time consolidated into Bitcoin.
Right.
And what you can see from, if I zoom out back to the weekly, is this range has been in place for quite a long time now, and it goes all the way back to it's held roughly this resistance level from all the way back in May 2018, hasn't managed to break higher, so it hasn't taken out these highs from the previous bull market.
And that's sitting on 0.8, right?
Roughly this is 0.84, but it's holding around this 0.8 range.
Yeah, the general area.
Yeah, but what this does show up as, if I think probably the daily will show it a bit clearer, is some would look and go, oh, it's a bull flag, it's making it's trying to break higher. What it looks like to me would be something like this. This, as it stands, it could break higher, and if it breaks higher, of course, it invalidates. So for those that don't know, the Wyckoff distribution and Wyckoff accumulation is basically a sort of long-term chart pattern of how whales, big players in the market, look to either accumulate larger positions or offload larger positions. And because of the size of these players, they can't suddenly just dump the market all in one go, because they would collapse the price, they would ruin the charts, they would, these people can put things into a bear market purely themselves.
Right.
And so they have to take time to scale out of their positions. And what we've seen with Ethereum is an awful lot of growth, an awful lot of movement against Bitcoin, from the lows here in September 2019. It's done 340% as it stands versus Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And this is for Ethereum. This is already a big player. It should be noted that the low for the cycle low for Bitcoin came in here in November 2018. So Ethereum did break its cycle low after the ultimate bottom was put in. And where are we now? We're in a period of sideways accumulation for Ethereum, but no real sign of strength, and the overall market doesn't look great.
Right.
And it's just something to really be aware of, that although, long term, I'd like to think everyone's bullish on Ethereum. If you're bullish on crypto, you should be bullish on Ethereum, because Ethereum is essentially an index fund for altcoins. It stores the sentiment and the liquidity and the behavior of the overall crypto space, I think, even better than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So this is something to kind of be aware of, that Ethereum is valued relatively high compared to Bitcoin at this current moment in time, and isn't showing any really strong signs of strength. It's not showing anything significant. It's just flatlining. So what we have seen here is, just look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, is Bitcoin dominance it's flatlined. Bitcoin dominance is dependent, obviously, largely on Ethereum, because Ethereum is the other large player in the space. But for from the cycle low here of September, we've now seen 4 months basically of Bitcoin moving upwards overall in dominance, whereas Ethereum has similar to the chart of Ethereum itself, or ETH-BTC chart, has sort of topped out. Now it does look more bullish in terms of dominance than it does versus Bitcoin. And that is possible, that what we could see is ETH-BTC break down whilst Ethereum dominance breaks up.
Right.
And
could see that.
What that would essentially mean is a not very nice collapse in the altcoin market.
Yeah, but I do think, though, sorry to interrupt you, Rob, but I do think also that there are some worries around ETH right now. If you want to put on some macro and fundamentals into this too, because you have to, when you do ETA, you have to always think about everything. And it's the fact that some developers on ETH are talking about kind of postponing the unlocking of the staking, the staked ETH. And there are a bunch of reasons for that, because they have to rewrite the code again for the next update that's going to come after the one that's coming now. I can't remember the names of those updates. Sorry,
I can't remember. But ultimately, the whole merge, the whole move to proof of stake was a buy the rumor, sell the news event. Yeah, and for sure. The selling the news doesn't have to happen all at once. This can be as we're seeing, this could be a multi-month, long-term offloading of ETH positions and an accumulation back into Bitcoin. Could be people saying the altcoin party's over for now because global macro looks like shit, and Bitcoin has properties which sets it apart from the overall crypto space. That's simply a fact. One thing I realize we're coming just to the end, so I'm just going to touch very quickly. So as a discussion on how these altcoins are moving. So here's Matic versus Ethereum, and you see, it absolutely giga pumped. That's crazy pump from the lows, something along the lines of 4,000% versus Ethereum. That is a huge amount of profit, and you could see basically something similar here, where you have a distribution, you have a long-term movement of a de-risking of people from these altcoins, Polygon being one of them, into the likes of ETH.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that's about kind of where we're at. Is still this idea of be cautious and be wary, because the charts look good short term. The charts still have not reversed. They still haven't had any long-term confirmations of a reversal.
Yeah, and with that said, most charts right now, and keep this in mind, everybody who's doing tea, even if you're experienced, this is something that I personally kind of miss out on. In order to confirm a trend reversal, for example, you would need higher highs, higher lows, right? And you would have to have both of those, in my opinion, where it's like you come up, it comes down to bounce on something, and then make a higher high after that. That for me is a trend reversal confirmation. Right now, what we've had is a bump right up, and we haven't even gotten halfway yet to confirm a bounce or a small correction anywhere for Bitcoin, at least, where it's come down to a significantly important line or support line or whatever you want to, all these things that we just talked about on Bitcoin. It hasn't actually come back down to retest it and then confirm that it wants to keep going anywhere. It's just on this pump, sideways a little bit. We haven't really seen the real correction to then confirm the bigger pump that comes after that, if it comes. So I am careful right now. Yeah. I've stopped and started a few bots back and forth during this period, just to kind of take quick profits, because I'm not sure if this is the time or not. But then the FOMO kicks in, even for me, and I go, oh, okay. And then I'm like, no. But sorry, we're hey Dave. So you got some wins in chat for your mother there, Rob, as well.
Thanks.
So we're gonna actually I want to ask for everybody who's watching right now, would you answer this in the chat as soon as you can. We're gonna close it off here, but would you prefer to have this be half an hour, or would you prefer it if it was longer? Or do you think we should do our longer stuff during the weekend, or on the Fridays we can do a long one, where it's upwards towards 2 hours, maybe even, with you guys as guests? You are more than welcome to join the stream on Fridays. That's kind of the idea with the Friday night hangout that we're going to do later on. So just ask a lot of questions in the Discord and hang out, and if you want to come on the show, let us know and we'll talk about it. And yeah, that's it. So before we end this, remember, if you're not subscribed, make sure you do subscribe. Yes. And hit the like
comment,
button,
share. Yeah.
Like, comment, share.
Everyone.
Notifications, all this stuff. And show this video to everybody who have ever met in your life. Your kindergarten teacher, your dog.
Show it to anybody who's asked about buying Bitcoin in the last 2 weeks.
Yes. Or anyone that has ever drank water. Yes. Great. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you.
Thanks. Bye.
Hopefully tomorrow. Bye. Cheers.